I'm sorry, what?
I have it marked that we were holding by the brackets after Gamkin, the Abba Paltiel.
Abba Paltiel. I don't. Oh, here. Abba Paltiel. Okay. All right. Okay, so we'll start from the beginning of that line. This is a couple lines below the middle of the page. The line begins with the word kulhi. Okay, Chaim, you're with us? You agree that this is where we're up to?
How the line?
Kulhi.
I don't remember we get so far. Last year we start from the beginning of the page. I don't think we go so far.
Yeah, I also kind of doubt, but so let me summarize over here. So we explained the reason for the tzimtzum, the reason for the Shem Elokim. We explained that there were two factors. The koyach to create is from the Shem Havaya, and it cannot be without that. There has to be the koyach hapoyel. However, from the Shem Havaya, there cannot be the creation, because this is bli gvul and this is gvul, and bli gvul and gvul cannot correlate to one another. And we discussed the thing from bli gvul and gvul a lot to understand what we mean by bli gvul and why the bli gvul and the gvul simply do not recognize each other. So you remember that? Remember that? A little bit? Let me refresh just very simply the concept. Bli gvul does not mean an unlimited amount of gvulim. Like you have $1 and you have an unlimited amount of dollars. That's not what you mean by bli gvul. Because in fact, no matter how many dollars you have, it all consists of finite entities. Bli gvul means something that is intrinsically bli gvul. Makes no difference how much of it. Like the Baal Shem Tov, an expression for the Baal Shem Tov. Etzem, Shatotefes, Miktsose Shatotefes Bekula. That Etzem, if you have part of it or a little bit of it, you have the whole thing. And let me explain using a simple illustration, simple motion, what we mean by that. And that is from the sun and the ray of the sun. The sun ray emanates from the sun. Everybody understands the English only. Emanates from the sun. Millions of miles away, and it gives light, and it illuminates our earth. Where here it is dark. Without the sun, it will be complete darkness. This ray originates from the sun itself. What is the sun? The sun is not light. The sun is what's called an essence of light. What is the difference? The difference is light is that which can make darkness lit up. In other words, it can relate to darkness. It could be darkness, it could be there, it could not be there. And this is why light is able to illuminate darkness. Like I always explain that the sunlight, the reason we are able to see the world as a result of the sunlight is not just because of the light, but because the light is so limited that it combines with the darkness. And everything that we see because there is light and also darkness. We see things not only because of light, we see things because of the shade, because of how much light is deflected. Like this is white and this is black. The reason this is white and this is black is because the white deflects more of the light than the darkness, than the dark. And this is why we could see. If the light that the sun would give, that would reach us, would be so infinite, then it wouldn't be distinguishable between dark and it could not combine with darkness. If it couldn't combine with darkness, we didn't see anything. Seeing means to see in our world, means to see in this limited level where there is light and dark combined together. The sun itself, in the sun itself, as the Alter Rebbe explains in Tanya, there is also light inside the sun. But inside the sun, this means literally, because the sun is a huge body. The sun is millions of miles in diameter. So what's the difference between the way it is in the space that the sun occupies and the space outside of the sun? Outside of the sun, it is dark primarily, and the sun, and then we have the light that brings it, that makes it, gives the light. Inside the sun, there is no darkness at all. The whole concept of darkness doesn't exist inside the sun, because the sun is the origin of light itself. So darkness is impossible, not because the sun illuminates it, but because it doesn't exist to begin with. The primary existence of sun is light. So therefore, sun itself is called the bli gvul of light, because their light is not something that is acquired, that like we acquire light. So therefore, it comes to us in a measured manner. Over there, this light is present primarily as a primary state. So therefore, a light over there is called bli gvul because it is primarily there. It's not coming there. There is no such thing as sun without light. And there's no such thing as darkness inside the sun. So if we brought the sun down to this earth, would the sun, would that serve as a luminary to the earth? Besides the fact that it would burn up the earth. Just in terms of light, it wouldn't do anything. It wouldn't give light. Because it would give what's called infinite light. Infinite light does not let you see things. To see things, you have to be able to combine the darkness with the light. Okay? Still with me?
Isn't this where you've already made an example of the black substance that absorbs all the light?
What?
You said that there's some scientific thing with a black substance of a film that absorbs, takes all the light in.
Oh no, I don't think I mentioned it.
That's what
It's amateur,
That's what oregano's is.
Sorry?
Oregano's would be that.
Oiragonus. Again, this is a little bit out of context of what I'm trying to explain. I'm trying to explain the concept of bli gvul and to understand why bli gvul and gvul cannot correlate. Because the concept of gvul, by definition, means that it is something that came into being, which means there was a time that it didn't exist, and now it came into being. That's gvul. Bli gvul does not have that phenomenon of coming into being. It is a primary presence. Not to be doesn't exist over there. And therefore it doesn't recognize anything that has to come into being. It cannot relate to it. And the same thing, the finite entity cannot relate to that which is infinite.
But the shorish of the gvul is the bli.
When was
You
the
can't
sun
relate
created?
to it.
I'm sorry, that's again off what?
When was the sun created? During Church celebration?
Yes, sure. On the fourth day.
Ronald, I understand the concept, so to speak, the concept of combination. But I want to know, I mean, transformation is different from combination. Combination is when the two go together, and then you can see what it means. But transformation is when the darkness is light now. How can it happen? How can it be? What does it mean it happen?
Okay, again, this is off topic. All I want is that we should be able to proceed here. I want you to understand how bli gvul and gvul cannot correlate. The same thing, a human being. We have to drink. How do we drink? We put water in through our mouth, the little bits, and we drink it. You can't drink by jumping into the lake and drink. You'll drown. When there is an abundance, drinking to a person means that you drink, you put a little water in, but you not become part of the water. If you become part of the water, you can't do it. This is bli gvul and gvul cannot combine. This is the point. But yet, the koyach to create, the koyach alaki to create, is from Shem Havaya, is from bli gvul, and therefore bli gvul is the koyach that has to be involved in creation. It cannot be absent. Koyach to create has to come from that bli gvul.
That's my question. How does it begin to relate? You said that it doesn't relate to the.
So that's why there is a Shem Elokim. The Shem Elokim contains the Shem Havaya, and it limits the Shem Havaya, and allows only what we explained last time, the chitzonius of the Shem Havaya to come through, shenius of the oil to come through, and that is able to relate to world and to create. This is the whole concept of the Tzimtzum, of Shem Elokim. So what creates the Shem Elokim only does not take over the Shem Havaya. It is only mitzamtzim and allows the chitzonius of the Shem Havaya to be revealed, and the pnimis should remain under wraps, so to speak, concealed. And we explained last time, since I went this far, we explained last time the meaning of the word chitzonius and pnimius. Chaim, remember that? That it allows the chitzonius only, and not the pnimius.
Maybe
That's right. That's right. That's right. That's right. You remember? I'm very glad. I want to use the same analogy we had from the sun, since that's what we use today. So, the pneumius of the sun is not just that it's a bright light, a bright star, but that it is self-creating, it is self-perpetuating. The sun has light infinitum. The sun is giving off light for 5,500 years without diminishing, without losing any of it. It's called the essence of light. This is the real pneumius, this is the real essence of the sun. That is the essence of light. Like I pointed out many times, the difference between sunlight and any other light, like candlelight. You remember? What's the difference between candlelight and sunlight? Candlelight is a fire burning off a wick. And in the center of the fire is a wick. The wick itself is dark. It's not light. The wick itself is dark. So that this is darkness being transformed into light. So that's not the essence of light. You're burning it up, it becomes light. Sun does not have a wick, does not have a dark center that gets burned up. It is light through and through. It's called the essence. This is the pneumius, the real essence of the sun. That it is light through and through, and it doesn't diminish an iota over 5,500 years. And as long as the Rebbe wants it to exist, that's how it's going to be. This is the pneumius of sun. What's the chitzonius of sun? Chitzonius is, it gives off light. It gives off light. So we, the earth, can only relate to this chitzonius, that this is a source of light. The pneumius, that this is light through and through. An essence of light, this does not come to the earth. The earth does not have the sense of the essence that it's fundamentally light. No, the earth remains fundamentally dark. Doesn't change. Even though the sunlight comes here, it remains primarily dark, and the sunlight illuminates it. It doesn't become primarily light because the sun is there. So we don't get from the sun, this pneumius, the essence of the sun. But we have the chitzonius, the light. The effect of its presence, not its own presence. This is the same meaning of the Shem Elokim and Shem Havaya. Shem Havaya, this is the essence of Blikvul. This is the essential truth. Shem Elokim conceals that essence and only shows, oh, there is a koyach that can create. But that's a chitzonius. If it's a koyach that can create, therefore it can relate to creation. But it could be something existing and something non-existent. Hashem Havaya itself, there is no such thing. There's no such thing as existing and not existing. Of creating something, that something that doesn't exist should come into existence. The whole concept of non-existent doesn't exist. That's not present in Shem Havaya. Where is it? Where can that be identified with? That's in Shem Elokim. Shem Elokim conceals the essence of Shem Havaya, like conceals the sun, the essence of sun, and you have the light, you have the koyach to create. The koyach to create already speaks about creating, bringing something into being that doesn't exist. Therefore, that can relate to creation. And therefore the Rebbe concludes that even though there is Shem Elokim, which conceals the pneumius of Shem Havaya, but that concealment is only from the perspective of the Nivroim, of the creation, of the world, of the creatures. Because in the world, we do not experience the real Koyach of Shem Havaya, only the Shem Elokim, only that which are the Chitzonius. Therefore, there is the Tzimtzum, the Hell of a Hester, that the Shem Havaya is concealed, and what we have is the Chitzonius. But from the perspective of Hashem Himself, Milamai Lolamata, from God's view, doesn't conceal. Hashem sees, so to speak, and is present in the Chitzonius the same way as is in the Pnimis. And the Pnimis itself is present in the Chitzonius. Coming back to our Moshel, if we were to the sun, that's from the perspective of the sun, the light of the sun is really sunlight. It's not something different. It's sunlight that comes from the sun, that is an essence of light. So from the perspective of the sun, this is real thing. From us, we take only the Chitzonius. And this is what the Rebbe concludes, that the Tzimtzum of Shem Elokim is effective only legabe the Nivroim, but not legabe the Boirei, legabe the Creator Himself. What? That's what we were up to? I thought so too. I thought so too. I thought so too. I mean, he had it marked, so I thought that this is where we were up to. Okay, so in that case, we'll go back there. We're going back. This is 8 lines from the top. The line begins with Yesh. The ha'ora zu mislabeshes b'kelim. This ha'ora, the ha'ora Chitzonius, in mislabesh in kelim, that's a sfira tzil b'chinas, is chalkus chochma v'chesed. This is where there could be the various qualities that are revealed in the oil of chochma v'chesed. Above that, there is no qualities. V'yesh lo, okay, this is what comes. V'yesh lo b'chinas erech v'shachus la'elamus. And this ha'ora, when it's mislabesh in the kelim, that already has an erech v'shaychus. Erech, it can relate to, and it has a connection. It can be related to Eilamus, to world. What is the principle of world? The principle of world is that there are multiplicity. There are many things. That's what world is. Essentially, the Alter Rebbe describes world, so to speak. What is the essence, the nucleus of world is time and space, past, present, and future. It's not all one it sees. Past, present, and future. Milo, mato, and dalet city. This is what world is. It consists of many things. Elokus, the essence, doesn't have multiplicity. It's in the essence of truth itself. Like in a human being. A human being, in order to survive, he has to have 613 different parts. And each part serves another purpose in order to be a human being. The neshama incorporates all of these functions and then some, the essence of life, without any parts. Neshama doesn't consist of parts. It's one entity that can illumine, that can give life to the whole body, and all 613 different parts with all their different functions, and it's all one part, one entity. Where does this subdivision take place? In the neshama itself, it cannot happen, because the neshama is above that. Where does it happen? It happens at a lower level. This is like the tzimtzum, and it conceals the essence, and there it's kind of capable to be established in kelim. And all of this whole light that comes, all of these functions and all this life that comes into the body, all aspects, sight, hearing, touch, smell, seichel, and midas, all of that comes from the same neshama. But here it gets subdivided, because you don't have the essence, you have only the chitzonius. And that yesherach v'shachas le'ilam is. This has a connection to worlds. And in this union, that has erev v'shachas le'ilam is, has connection to worlds, is also illustrated in our analogy here, that in order for me to move this cup, I cannot move the cup with my neshama. To move the cup, the neshama has to be mislabish in my guf, and it is mislabish in the specific koyach of my hand, and the specific koyach of my will or my seichel, and then I'm able to relate to the world, to move the subject. Where the neshama, the koyach neshama itself is completely concealed, and what remains just the koyach itself. Okay, let's continue now. Thus, this is k'moi, this is comparable to the seichel hamtzumtzum shel hamashpia, the contracted and limited seichel of the mashpia, shehu lefi erech hamekabel. That this limited seichel of the mashpia, what is the purpose of and the sense of this limitation? It is to bring the seichel to the point that it should be lefi erech hamekabel. That the mashpia, his seichel is developed to a much greater extent, almost to infinite relative to the makabel. And if he wants to impart some of his seichel to the makabel, he has to limit it and to bring it out in a manner that should be lefi erech hamekabel. The makabel should be able to relate to it. And that is the same thing, how it is in the oiris in Bikeli. The yachar kach, and then afterwards, ali dei chitzonius hakeli, through the function and the services, so to speak, of chitzonius hakeli, the ali dei haparso hamapsekis, and then further, by the effect of the parso. Parso means a gap or a curtain. Hamapsekes, that separates between Atzilus libiyah, between Atzilus and Biyah. As we discussed previously, Atzilus is also called a world, but it is not a world in the same sense as Biyah, as Bria, Yitzira, Asiyah. It is also a world in the sense that there are Kelim and there is a distinction between Chokhmah and Chesed and Gur and so forth. But each union of that in Atzilus is fully illuminated, fully imbued with the essence of godliness. And Atzilus, therefore, is what's called Olam Ha'eliki. It's a godly world. The term godly world, the meaning of God, what is God? What's so special about the word godly? Huh?
There's nothing else there.
What is the meaning of the word godly in distinction of worldly?
Elokus is the pashtus. There's no oil. There's nothing else but godly. It's completely spiritual, completely godly.
And what's the difference whether it's spiritual or worldly? What is the meaning of the word
There's
godly?
no other creations.
Or the what?
There's no creations there. There's no malachim. There's no people. There's no neshamas. There's nothing. Just earn in.
Right. So therefore, so what? So it's world. It's a godly world. What is? Come on, say the words. Say it. So what's so special about godly? Why is it so different than worldly? that
No, that's
godly,
your partner.
Built in Mukbal.
huh?
Built in Mukbal.
Bilki Mugbal. What does it mean? It is not a created presence. Godly means it was never created. It's the primary truth. Worldly means was created. Came into being.
This is the Nisada and the Caleb, what they also Nisada?
So, all of that, despite the fact that the oil is established even in Kelim, as we discussed a little bit last time, it still remains godly. And that's why it's called Atzilus. It's completely devoted to Elokus. It's not a separate Messiah.
So everything is in a proof of it.
Everything is ultimately Elokus, but you do not, but it doesn't express it. It doesn't express the Elokus. It comes from Elokus. I mean, all in truth it's Elokus, but it's not like. I always mention this story with the Rebbe that somebody asked the Rebbe whether the world could be destroyed as a result of a nuclear war. And the Rebbe said, no, the world could not be destroyed. The world couldn't be destroyed. Why couldn't the world be destroyed? Not because the world couldn't be destroyed, but because the world is sustained by godly will. And as long as the Rebbe wants the world to be, it cannot be destroyed. So, but this godly will, this is not revealed in the world. Looking at the world itself, of course it can be destroyed. So you're right, everything is godliness, but it's concealed. But since that it exists because of godly will, therefore it has to continue to be. Cannot be destroyed. No human being can possibly destroy the world. So this I wanted to point out is always Atzilus and Biyah. Atzilus is also world in the sense that there is multiplicity there. There's Chesed, Gvura, Tiferes, and so forth. And yet, this is what Atzilus is called a Memutza, like the intermediary between godliness and worldliness. That's what it's called a godly world. It's a world that is not separate from godliness. In everything there, you can see that this is godly, meaning it represents the truth of God himself. It's not a created thing. That's why it's called Atzilus. What Atzilus means, it has several meanings, several implications of the word Atzilus. Atzilus means Etzloi, very close by. Etzloi, near him. What's near him? Like we spoke about the sunlight. There's a sunlight outside of the sun. And then there's light inside the sun. The sunlight inside the sun is also light. But it doesn't become a separate entity from the sun. It recognizes directly, it is reflective of the sun. It's not light. It's reflective of the essence of the sun. This is like Atzilus. It is light, but it's reflective of the essence. That's why Atzilus is a completely different category than Biyah. Which is a creation. And in order to come from Atzilus into Biyah, there's a whole process. It's called the parsa. A gap, so to speak, a separation between. In order, this gap affects that there is a moment where there is nothing, and then comes Biyah. Not directly from Atzilus. Because directly from Atzilus, it remains God. Like there's an outside. Like in the sunlight, right? The sun, there's a side light inside the sun, and then there is a light of the sun outside the sun. This outside is like a separate, completely different level. This is outside already. The separate mitzvahs.
The whole relationship between Atzilus and Bria was facilitated through the Yichud Zun. Malchus came through with the letters, and that's how it relates. It doesn't So there's also like a concept where it becomes nothing and then it relates to it?
Through Malchus. Ultimately, it comes through Malchus. And the meaning of Malchus is that it is the Helen. Like a melech speaks, but that which is in his mind is completely concealed in his mind. This is how creation comes about. Malchus Datzilus comes bri, huh?
Right, it's a Gilui of Malchus. Malchus is
But the
where it's
Gilui
part
itself
of
is a Helen with the Gilui. The Gilui itself is a Helen with the Gilui, like that which is gathered through speech is not a real Gilui. Speech only says about what you think, not who you are itself. It's a Helen with the Gilui. Why Mashakosov Minyan Haparso Betero Eir Pashas Vayira Dibra Hamaskal Posel Yo Shu Keinam Sholim. So in the Rebbe, the Alter Rebbe in Teiro Eir explains in this Mayim Posel Yo that the Parsa is something similar in terms of the Seichel Horav and the Talmud, the relationship between the Rav and the Talmud is Ki Inyan Am Sholim. It is like the Inyan of Mesholim, a Moshel. But a moshel is finding something similar of what he's trying to explain, but in a completely different world, in physical world. Let me talk about the sun. It's a physical entity. It doesn't have a neshama and a ruchni, a godly presence, but it's a moshel to understand a certain concept. This is like a parsa. You speak about something completely different, away from the Inyan itself. And then, when you come back to the Inyan itself, you're able to relate to it. This is like a parsa, like it's a gap in the middle. So then, as a result of the parsa, the Atzilus and Biyah, Nimshach Oir, then, thus, as Nimshach comes through, such an Oir, Lefi erech oilamais baalei gvul, an oir that can relate to oilamais baalei gvul, finite oilamais. Lahavois, to bring into being, to create oilamais biyah. To create oilamais biyah, biyah yitzira asiyah. Because oilamais biyah, even though there is a big difference between Biriya and then Yitzira and then Asiya, but there is a summon and there's a common quality between them that they're all Baalei Gvul. And the principle of Baalei Gvul, like we explained before, that everything, for instance, in a human being, everything that he does has to come through a finite process. It's a gvul. How does a person breathe? He breathes through one part of through his nostrils. How does a person see? Through little openings in his head. How does a person hear? Through his ears. How does a person speak? Through his mouth. Doesn't the whole person speak, the whole person hear, the whole person sees? It doesn't work like that. Baalei Gvul. And everything has its own distinct function.
How does that relate to each one of the worlds would be compared to like one of those kefas, like seeing or hearing, or each one fulfills its specific function?
Well, no. In general, the three worlds, Bria, Yitzira, Asiya, all three worlds are created entities, right? Created entities. The concept of creation means that it's outside of the source. It's outside. Just like by a person, there's the nefesh itself. The seichel, the midas, nefesh itself. And then what's outside of the nefesh? Machshava, dibur, u'maisa. That's the function of the nefesh. And the nefesh acts outside. Machshava, dibur, u'maisa. So therefore, these three worlds of Bria, Yitzir, Asiya are like the level of Machshava, Dibur, u'maisa. Bria is like Machshava. That's like by a person, Machshava is very close to his seichel, very close to it. It actually senses the seichel itself. It's not the seichel. It's a keli for the seichel, but it's very close.
What is the seichel?
The seichel is a nefesh. That's the seichel. That's in Shoma itself. That's a koyach nefesh. But
There's only one spot on the guf, it's not all over?
no, the neshama is all over. This is a separate. In the neshama is all over. But all koyches, the seichel and the midas also, the midas of the person, Abba, the Yira, and all that. These are also neshama koyches. All 10 koyches are neshama koyches. But that's how it is in the neshama itself. But when it comes to a functioning level, functioning means acting level, then it has to come to machshava, dibur, u'maisa. In order for the midas to function, it has to come to a level of machshava, dibur, u'maisa. This is called outside the nefesh, how the nefesh can affect outside of itself. And this is what the three worlds of Bria, Yitzir, Asiya, generally speaking, represent the madrega of machshava and dibur, u'maisa. Okay. However, we have to further understand, after having explained all of this, from the Helem and Shem Elakim and so forth, we have to go back and understand the reverse, the opposite principle. Kol b'chinas Helem v'hester anal, the Shem Elakim, the entire effect of the Helem v'hester that the Shem Elakim affects, so that there is a finite and limited oil of Shem Havaya, of a Elokus coming through in order to be mislabish in Kiyam, the Atzilus, and so forth. All the whole effect of Shem Elakim are rei, but then it should be obvious that legabe atzmus ein soif, that from the perspective of atzmus ein soif, ein ze malim or mastir klal, it does not conceal at all. The canal, the moshel, as we mentioned before, in the moshel of Seichel and the Mashpia Mekabel, Shalagabe HaMashpia, that explained that from the perspective of the Mashpia, Ein Shum Helem, there is no Helem, there's no concealment, there's no darkness whatsoever. Umeir Etzloi, and by him, by the Mashpia, shines through Kol Oim Eksichle v'Chochmosei, the full depth of his Seichel and Chochmo, Gam be'aseichel hamtzumtzum u'be'hamesholim, even in the limited Seichel and in the Mesholim themselves. He recognizes in the lowest, in the most distant, the most coarse level of the Seichel, he recognizes the whole Seichel, all the depth and the whole depth of his Seichel. Canal, as we explained before. if you're with me, I would like to discuss this principle again. Since the Rebbe repeats it again, I'd like to discuss it again. Give us a chance maybe to understand it a little better. What is the oimeg ha-seichel and what is the chitzonis ha-seichel? We spoke several times about the idea, what do we mean by seichel? What is seichel? Like I said before, seichel is the nefesh. What is seichel? Like, the brain, but in our function, what do we refer to when we say the seichel? Oimeg ha-seichel, the depth of the seichel. So explained. The seichel is able to be disgaber al. That's true. But I'll give you a simple example to understand that there is what to delve into, understand what an seichel. Let's say you have a siddur, a big siddur. It has big lettering. You have a small siddur and it has small lettering. And they're both identical siddurim. One is a copy of the other. So a child might say, oh, this siddur is small. There's much less to say. Let's just go from here to here. And a big city, you have to go from here to here. Oh, that's a lot. Okay? That could be an intuitive reaction. That's a lot. So then you explain to him the seichel. Like you said, the seichel came in front of him. You say, wait a second. You know there is exactly the same number of words and letters from here to here as from this small city. That's also seichel. But is this what we mean, something that the neshama understands? I mean, is this what we mean by seichel and nefesh? That expresses neshama and nefesh? You take the page, count over the number of letters on this page and on this page, you see they're exactly identical. You don't need a neshama to tell you this. You need a neshama to understand the concept, but tell you that this is the same number of letters as this, not necessary. You don't need a neshama for this. So what then is seichel? The seichel is called, this is neshama seichel. Seichel pertains to the way we are able to perceive things. We are able to perceive this world as a physical world. Perceive, right. Think of, recognize. You can perceive this world as a physical entity. It's just a piece of wood. And you can perceive the world as something, that's on the lower level, as a human or godly. You see a different world. Two people looking at the same thing. One sees just a physical entity, and one sees a godly, a human entity. Like I point out, you go into a feast or chasana, and you see chasana set up. Each one of you are going to have their own chasanas, with tables and chairs and settings, and it's all beautiful. Two people come into this room, and you could see it two different ways. Like I always say, the cat sees the food, but the human being sees the simcha, sees something different. That's a human perception. It doesn't exist physically. That's the beginning of seichel. It's called seichel emushi. You're able to see things that are not physical, that exist only in the human mind, in the human soul. This is what seichel is about. You understand? For this you need a nefesh. For this you need a nefesh, a shoma, a human soul, to relate to something, that of value that is not tangible physically, but really that's much greater than than everything that's tangible together. But coming back to this motion of the simcha, of the chasana, in order to set up the chasana, you have to have tables and chairs, and you have to have place settings, and you have to have food. You have to have all of these things. So even though this simcha is being presented and translated with food and all kinds of things, what does the Baal Simcha see? He doesn't see the food. He sees the real thing in everything. Whatever he looks, he sees the Simcha. Even though it has to be presented through these means, through physical means, but he nevertheless sees in that the real thing, whatever it looks. It doesn't conceal for him what this is about. It doesn't distract him. This is the similar union of a Rav explaining Seichel to the Talmud. So he's giving him all kinds of misholim. So the Talmud gets it through the Moshe. Unlimited, he doesn't go directly to the essence of the Seichel, to understand what is Seichel. But the Rav, to him, all the Mishalim are all revealing the same thing. And he sees in every motion, in everything, the essence of the Seichel, of the Oimek Seichel, the Oimek of his Seichel. By him, it's not, the motion doesn't conceal. Except he was able to find an illustration of the Oimek HaSeichel in something very simple, something that the Makabel can also relate to. But it's the very same Seichel. This is the pshat when it says that the Gabi the Mashpia, so Gabi Mashpia ain't shul hela u'meir esel kol eimek sichel v'chmos gamba seichel am tzumtzum v'ham shol. There is no helam at all. And in this seichel, this limited seichel, is meir the whole eimek, the full depth of his seichel. Kniskeli, as we explained before. Moi kein yuvon kaviyochel amayim. Similarly, we can understand kaviyochel the way the Indian is amayim. The legabe oirein soif. that perspective of Ein Ein Sof, even though the Ein Ein Sof is getting concealed and limited in terms of how much is revealed, but Ein Shum Tzimtzum V'Hester Klal. There is absolutely no Tzimtzum V'Hester. The Ein Ein Sof, which means that the Ein Ein Sof Nimtzo is present. The Mokim HaCholol, in the vacant space, Leyachar HaTzimtzum, after the Tzimtzum, K'moi Koidem HaTzimtzum, exactly the same way as he was present before the Tzimtzum. What is this Mokim HaCholol? Mokim HaCholol, this is how the Tzimtzum is described in Kisvei Arizal. Mokim HaCholol, that there is a Tzimtzum, there is Ein Ein Sof is all over, is everywhere. And then there was a Tzimtzum. Tzimtzum means that this Ein Ein Sof was concealed. And what happens as a result of this concealment? It resulted in a place that's called Cholol. Cholol means vacant, a vacuum. Mokim Cholol, a vacant place. What is the pshat Mokim Cholol? What is the union of this vacant place? Mokim Cholol is the pshat that now, once there's a vacant place, you can bring there and develop this place piecemeal, by little bits. Like this, there was Ein Ein Sof everywhere. And you don't recognize any differences between one thing and another. There is everything there. When you create a Mokim Cholol, a vacant place, then you can be mamshich there. What happens in Mokim Cholol? And since there is Mokim Cholol, so everything that comes there now becomes something that is coming into it. In other words, there is a source and a target where it's coming from. It's not there to begin with. And like we said, the union from Ein Sof that is primarily there. It's not primarily there. It's something that is nimshach, that comes in there. This is what Mokim Cholol. Like you don't have, and now you have. If you don't have, now you have. Therefore, what comes there is already a finite and a measured entity, measured quantity. This is the first description of Tzimtzum is described this way. That there was a Tzimtzum, and it created a Mokim Cholol. But this Mokim Cholol, as we're explaining here now, this Mokim Cholol is only effective from the perspective of the Cholol itself, but not from the perspective of Ein Ein Sof. The Ein Ein Sof is present in the Mokim Cholol exactly as it was present before the Tzimtzum.
That's only when God be in Sof. It's not when God be anything else. It's a call. That's how people can make a mistake in it. They don't see and realize it. When God be in the Grime, there's nothing. It's not revealed with the.
That we will see later. But yes, L'gabe Nivroim it's a Cholol, but L'gabe Ein Ein Sof, it's exactly the same as it was before. Because in order to create Nivroim, you had to do it. So it didn't remove the Ein Ein Sof. It only enabled Nivroim to be able to be created and to have a limited concept, a limited relation. So I'll give you a little bit of a mashal about this. Since you're trying so hard, give you a little bit of a mashal. Something that we've discussed in the past many times from different angles. Now we have to focus in on what we're trying to express. Before this house was built, this ground upon which the house is standing was here. Huh? The ground when this house is built was here before. Right? Before it was built, was here before. And it was exactly the same ground as it is now. Exactly the same. The ground and the space, everything was exactly the same. Not like it. It is the very same. Except, before you built a house, you couldn't think about putting down a table, or a chair, or a bookcase. Where? There is no demarcation line. There is nothing there. You put up the walls of the house and the ceiling and the floor. All of a sudden, you have empty space where you can put everything. But this empty space is exactly the same that was there before you built up the walls. Didn't change. Except, huh?
To our
That's right.
experience.
That's right. That's right. That's right.
Essence.
The essence it didn't change. Didn't change. And it's still space. It's still the original reality. From the perspective of the reality itself, it's the same thing. And then you could see in this house, in this room, everything that you saw there before it was built. You still look at it as empty space. Empty space or potential unlimited space, however you want to look at it.
How do you get to the point where you can see it on that level? How do you get to the point where you can see it on that level? Because
On what
to
level?
The simple eyes, it has changed. Now there's a house.
That's right. So that's right. From our, you don't get it. That's the whole purpose of the tzimtzum. That you don't see it from that level, but you realize that this is the way it is the truth. From the perspective of Ein Sof, it hasn't changed. Nothing changed. Ukmeisha Kosem, and the Pasuk says, "As a Shomayim ve'ez ha'oretz ani molei." As a Shomayim ve'oretz ani molei. And Hashem says, I feel Shomayim ve'oretz exactly the same thing. Uksiv. It also says in the Pasuk, "Hayisos seir ish b'mistorim v'ani lo yarem." Can a man hide in hiding places, in hidden places, and I should not see? Now, what does this mean? I should not see him. He's hiding in hiding places. He's hidden. So how can you see? So have it? You can't. We For us, you can hide. Why can you hide? Because how do we see? We see by a limited function. We have our eyes, and if you put up a wall in front of our eyes, we are not on the other side of the wall. We are on this side of the wall. We cannot see. We can see only that which is directly open to our eyes. But Hashem is wherever wherever there is, wherever, He is there Himself. He doesn't see by the sight coming to Him. He is there Himself. That's why I saw it. You can't hide. Hide you can only from a human being, because a human being is in a separate place from you, so you can be concealed from him. But the Rebbe is not in a separate place from you. He is in the place, in the hiding place itself. He is there with you. Therefore, it cannot be concealed.
He is the place.
He is the place. Shagam le'achad, which expresses this principle, that even after kol ha'alomis ve'asterim, after all the effects of the concealments and the hiding, nimtzo ha'ed de'insoy boru b'chol mokum. The oil of Ein Sof is present everywhere. The leis asar ponu minei klal. For there is no place, asar, there is no place that's ponu minei, that is vacant of him. That his presence is not there. Klal at all. Okay. So this will be a good place to stop, right? That's our ponem in a cloud. A good thing to reflect. What? No, that's. I'm saying it's a good place to stop.
So the essence is moksha. It's not mukta. It's not mukta at all. So even if you understand the essence, what do you really understand? It's moksha. You understand it, you understand nothing?
No, we don't understand the essence. You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. But we understand in terms of what that means to us.
We maybe understand the essence will, that He also created, what He wants from us.
What it means to us, that's what I said.
Kivyat, but also kivyat.
What it means to us, that's the important thing. That, like it says over here, we cannot hide from Hashem. Hashem is with us wherever we are. Not only we cannot hide, but our chayes, Hashem is giving us chayes all the time. And we can understand it from many different angles, and they're all true.
We understand what He wants us to understand.
We understand. We can understand from this that you don't know what your future holds. You don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. How do you face tomorrow? I don't know, but the Rebbe knows. Hashem knows. And I'm here today because Hashem wants me to be. I'll be here tomorrow when Hashem wants me. Gives a person a real perception of real life. If we were dependent on ourselves, we looked at things from a worldly perspective, we'd have a very precarious existence. You know what precarious means? Limited, shaky. From 1 second, you wouldn't know the next.
Either way, we never know.
What?
Either way, we never know. We never know.
I'm sorry, in the way?
Either way, we never know.
We don't have to know. We know that the Rebbe is maintaining. We know that our existence is a real existence because Hashem wants us. So that gives us a completely different perception of life.
You said that, the other question, you said that the revealing of the light is transforming the darkness to light. It's not like more
No, it's not.
Transformed.
It's not. The darkness, as I explained before, the darkness remains. It combines darkness and light.
Darkness is just a missing of light. No?
That's right. But when the light comes, it comes in a limited form. So that it can combine with darkness. Otherwise, you wouldn't see anything.